Welcome to Plus Talk on Plus Life, where we are all about turning positive into a plus. Today, it's about warrior women. You know, when we talk about HIV advocates, our minds often, and understandably so, go to the Larry Kramers of the world or the ACT UP organizations, who have all played a very important role in making sure that people like myself and people diagnosed with HIV in this day and age can live full, happy, and productive lives. One sector that sometimes gets overlooked and doesn't get enough attention are the warrior women who have been fighting just as hard as the blokes. So today I am joined by Mejia and CeCe Covin. They are both members of the Well Project. Ladies, thanks so much for coming on to Plus Talk. Mejia, as I just said there in the intro, when we think of HIV advocates, we go to a lot of the men who have done a lot of work. We don't often talk as much about the women. Tell me what the Well Project is and what you ladies do.
Okay, well, the Well Project is a women's organization. It's global for women and girls that are living with a human condition of HIV or affected by it. And also, obviously, we include trans women because they are women too. And I started blogging with them 10 years ago as a volunteer. Now I'm part of their CAB and part of the staff too as their global ambassador. We're there as a sisterhood to help each other with our stories. And we also have a lot of important fact sheets, and we expanded to Latin America and to other languages as well, so we could have a high reach because we have millions of readers from all over the world. And women must be included in this fight because we've always been a part of the fight.
Yeah, and it's so important. CeCe, what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have when it comes to women and HIV?
Well, I think that people living with HIV look a certain type of way. I think that they think that, you'll be able to look and tell that something is going on. And that has to be the biggest misconception, because if you see me or Maria, we look well. We look good.
I see two beautiful women, if I may be so bold as to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you think that's the biggest one of the biggest misconceptions. Maria, share with me a question that you're always asked when people find out that you're living with HIV.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm a 32-year long-term survivor of HIV and diagnosed with AIDS. I almost died, and I do a lot of media, mainstream media. And I get very upset. That's why language matters, because they stigmatize us, especially in the communities of color, or my community, the Latinx community. But this is global. One of the first things that they ask me, and obviously I'm very direct, and I kind of like, even if it's in live, I kind of like educate them. It's like, so were you very promiscuous at 15 in 1988 that you got AIDS? And I said, first of all, you can't catch AIDS. We get HIV. AIDS is, when you reach a certain destruction of the immune system. And then they're like, so were you like a drug user, a prostitute? And all those things carry a lot of stigma. Not only that, with a misconception that sometimes in our own communities our fault, or maybe, how certain campaigns are geared towards specific groups. So there's still that ignorance that, it's a gay man's condition or disease. So if they see a woman living with HIV, immediately they think she must be, excuse my language, a whore, a deviant, a whore, a drug user. If you're born with HIV, I've seen more compassion, but that's really the misconception, and that's why education and showing our faces is so important for people to humanize the condition.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting? You're a 32-year survivor, and these stigmas still exist all these years later. We're 40-something years into HIV/AIDS, and about knowing about it, and it still exists. CeCe, what challenges do women, specifically women of color, do you think face in regards to HIV, and how is it made worse by stigma?
Oh, goodness. So the trust of the medical providers, I believe that is at the forefront of what we face as women of color living with HIV. A lot of us don't want to go get tested because we don't want to go into the providers. A lot of us are men. They're not going to go get tested. And that's something that is, ingrained in what we have experienced here in the States. I feel like stigma, I won't say nobody, but We rather not know, because once you know, it comes with a sense of responsibility. So if I neglect getting a test, then, that still leaves me a sense of freedom. So that stigma can keep us out of care.
Yeah, it is funny. I've said this countless times. HIV doesn't have to kill you, but stigma will. And it is shocking that this stigma still really does exist around this. We're in the middle of another horrible global pandemic right now. And, I think because COVID doesn't necessarily equate to perhaps sex or IV drug use, oh, okay, compassion. But there's so many taboos. How has stigma, Maria, affected dating and parenting and life and all of that?
Well, since I got diagnosed in a time when it was a death sentence and the stigma was, there's still stigma, but back then it was like horrendous, like we were biohazards. Kind of like with COVID, like you couldn't even say goodbye to your partner or to your spouse because you were like a biohazard. And I got to see that and live through much loss. And one of the first encounters with stigma, and I know my mother didn't do it to hurt me. She sat me down as a young teenager and said to me, we should not tell anybody in the family or friends. My family comes as a very ultra-conservative Catholic family. And she said, we have to come up with something that's similar. I feel in my heart you're not going to die from this. So I hid my status for 10 years. We had no access to treatment. We had no internet. I didn't know anyone that lived with HIV. I went back to Colombia, which is where I was born to die, along with my family. But there's where I had my spiritual transformation. So, it's been a long process. But what I could tell you is that whenever anyone tries to stigmatize me, I do not accept that. I will educate them with facts. For example, U equals U is one of the biggest things. I love Bruce. He's like my brother, and I'm a proud ambassador of U equals U as well. And their national and international steering committee was a very hard fight. It still is. But that has made it very easy now to disclose because I just say, you know what? Look at the CDC statement, undetectable equals untransmittable. Or go look at the World Project's slides in Spanish. And that's how we educate. One person's educate another one. And the ones that are, sincerely, I've never had a problem with dating. I've had long-term relationships of up to 10 years with women that are negative, with men that were negative, and only maybe 2 positive relationships. So I really do not tolerate stigma, or they don't do it in front of my face, because it's ignorance.
Maria, though, you mentioned there, you said, for 10 years, you sort of swept it under the carpet kind of thing. What did that do to you internally and mentally, though? Because I myself have suffered and continue to work through incredible internalized stigma. It's still a daily work in progress. And, I'm a 12, 13-year survivor, but or since diagnosis. What did sweeping it under the carpet and not talking about, what were the long-term effects mentally on you?
Well, you see, I have been through so much in my life: child sexual abuse, violence. I'm an ex-gang member. I've grown up with so much trauma in my life that I did that as a way to protect my mother, and she did it to protect me, so my own family wouldn't discriminate me. And there's a lot of decisions and everything in my family that doesn't mean nothing. There's a lot of even ignorance, especially back then. So it was pretty hard, but I took care of my grandparents until they passed, so I became like, I don't have children. That's one of the things that HIV took away from me. And taking care of my grandparents, that's why I call it my spiritual transformation, helped me, but at the same time I was dealing with a death sentence. Because all I would see was people dropping like flies and dying around me, and I almost died myself. And thankfully I'm here for a reason. I'm still here. And but it was not an easy thing. It was I'm a very strong woman, though. I lived through it. I almost died. I also was diagnosed with cancer. And I was like, why do I have to have now cancer as well? These 2 very hard diseases. And then now with this pandemic, as you mentioned, with COVID, I've had so much loss. Just this year alone, 25 of my friends have died. Some have died of suicide, committed suicide because of the isolation. Some because they're tired. depression, mental illness, so many things that we have to tackle. So what have I done? I started a new journey recently to finally get therapy for myself, because I can't continue helping the world.
No,
You know, if I'm
no,
not
and
an
it's
empty
good,
vessel.
and we need to talk about it and acknowledge that more and more. CeCe, how do we keep women in the conversation and make sure that they are part of the bigger conversation about HIV, about destigmatization, treatment, etc., that everyone is welcome at the table?
Continue to invite them to the table. Continue to not leave them out. Make safe spaces for them to show up. Listen to what they have to say, because we're talking. We're talking all the time, and it seems like our words often go on deaf ears. So just continue to open up spaces for us to show up, and I promise we will be there.
Well, ladies, I wish we had more time, but thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Plus Talk on Plus Life. Guys, for more information, check out thewellproject.org, a fantastic organization. Lots of information there. You can also find that information on our website, pluslifemedia.com, and be sure to follow us across social media at Plus Life Media. That's going to do it for today. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask. We'll see you next time.